Battle through the firmament. Great world. Chapter 401 Analyzing the situation. After entering the large hall, the darkness in front of them instantly assaulted their faces. It was a long while before everyone's eyes finally adapted to it. They looked to the front and saw Su Xiang casually sitting on a chair. He held an envelope in his hand and carefully read it. His expression was also grave. "All of you, come over and sit down." Su Xiang lifted his eyelids when he heard the voice. When he saw that Xiaoyan and the other three had arrived as agreed upon, a trace of relief appeared in his eyes. After which, he waved his hand and pointed to the surrounding seats with an expressionless face. When Xiaoyan and the other three came forward and sat down, Su Xiang raised his head. He held the envelope in his hand and swept his gaze across the crowd. With a heavy tone, he said, "Now, let me tell you about the 5 students who represent the Star Sky Academy this time. There's still 1 month left until the competition. We will depart in 5 days. We will head to the central region of the star field." "Where is it?" "The 4 academies competition will be holding this competition. It's very important in the entire star field. It might even attract experts from other realms." At the end, Su Xiang took a look at the envelope in his hand. His voice slowly sounded in the hall. "The participants of the Star Sky Academy this time are Kang Feng, Shang Xiaoshan, Wu Tiandu, Shang Hao and Shikanghai. You all know that Kang Feng is the young son of the Kang family. He entered the academy 1 year earlier than Yang. He is also the chosen one of the Star Sky Academy. Shang Xiaoshan and Shang Hao are the disciples of the Shang clan. Their father is an important figure in the Shang clan. Naturally, they have a lot of cultivation resources. Shang Xiaoshan and Xiaoyan entered the Star Sky Academy in the same year. Similarly, they are the chosen one of the Star Sky Academy after Kang Feng. Wu Tiandu is the son of the Pavilion Master of the Heaven Martial Pavilion in the northern part of the star field. Shikanghai is the son of the Pavilion Master of Surging Waves Prefecture in the star field. The power behind these 5 people is extremely shocking. Naturally, they are much stronger than ordinary students. After introducing the background of these 5 people, Su Xiang couldn't help but exhale. The background of these 5 people was too frightening. None of them were simple characters. According to the Star Sky Academy's letter to the 3 academies, the weakest of the 5 men is Shikanghai, a 6 parts Monarch Emperor. After finishing the topic, Su Xiang finally returned to the main topic. With a solemn expression, he told them the shocking news. 6 parts Monarch Emperor, the weakest. Wu Shaogi unconsciously cried out and blinked her beautiful eyes. It was as if she found it hard to believe that she had comprehended the Fire Emperor scripture. After another year of hard work, she finally managed to reach the 6th level of the peak of Monarch Emperor, although it sounded stronger than Shikanghai. 6 Monarch Emperor. This was merely the surface strength of the latter. No one would believe that he was unable to fight someone above his level. The weakest, 6 parts Monarch Emperor. Su Xiang slightly nodded his head and emphasized once more. Everyone finally regained their senses. Even Xiaoyan couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. These monstrous geniuses of Star Sky Academy were actually this strong. Lin Dao pondered for a moment. He looked at the envelope in Su Xiang's hand and said in a slightly hoarse voice, "Elder Su, do you know the strength of Wu Tiandu and Shang Hao?" Glancing at Lin Dao, Su Xiang said, "Wu Tiandu showed the strength of 7 Monarch Emperor warriors. Shang Hao is the same as him. However, no one knows how strong he really is. 7 Monarch Emperor warriors." Hearing this, Lin Dao silently nodded his head without saying anything. Currently, his strength had also reached the 6th Dao peak of Monarch Emperor, and he was only a step away from the true 7th Dao Monarch Emperor. The gap between him and them wasn't too big, but if they really fought, it would be hard to tell who would win and who would lose. Next, let's talk about my idea. Yang can fight Kang Feng. Lin Dao, you and Wu Shaoqi are both at the peak of the 6th Dao. The opponent will choose between Shang Hao and Wu Tiandu based on the situation. After a pause, Su Xiang looked at Xiaoyan and Zhu Shenhe. After a moment of silence, Su Xiang shook his head and said in a deep voice, "You too." are relatively weak, especially Xiaoyan. He hasn't even reached the Monarch Emperor. But I believe that with your strength, you will definitely be able to defeat 5 ordinary Monarch Emperor warriors. This way, Xiaoyan, Jushinho, the 2 of you will do your best to hold Shanghao and Shikanghai back. As long as Ma Huyang and the other 2 have some free time, I can come and help you. After saying that, Su Xiang looked at Wu Shaoqi, who was frowning at the side. The latter had obtained the inheritance of the ancient expert in illusory spirit space, and the Fire Emperor scripture that she was cultivating was an ancient cultivation technique. He believed that the cultivation technique practiced by Wu Tiandu or Shanghao would be stronger. Perhaps Wu Shaoqi was the key to breaking through. Then, what are the rules of the 4 academies competition? How did they compete? Xiaoyan didn't say anything when he heard Su Xiang's arrangement. He pondered for a while and said in a deep voice, I'm not sure. Every year, there will be a slight change in the competition content of 4 academies competition. After all, it is a big competition that attracts the entire star field. If it is too monotonous, no one will be interested in it even after so many years. Su Xiang smiled helplessly and swept his gaze across the few of them once again. His time left before the competition. You won't be able to improve much even if you want to. As for the Monarch skill, it's all accumulated during normal days. Now, the only thing I can help you with is your weapon. All of you, take it out. I want to see if there's any way to increase the power of your weapon. At this moment, with a bit more strength, the chances of winning will increase. Hearing this, although everyone felt strange, they all took out their weapons. Lindao's Imperial Dragon Point Blue Spear appeared out of thin air. The instant it appeared, a murderous aura filled the air. They could vaguely hear the roar of a huge dragon. Wu Shaoqi's weapon was a fiery red hard bow. On the hard bow was a talisman drawn by an unknown strange beast. It was like a bird with its neck stretched out and let out a long cry. The entire hard bow gave off an ancient feeling. In Jushinho's hand was a simple and unsophisticated spear. The spear was covered with rust. It had obviously been through a lot of years. The blue flame ruler had also appeared in Xiaoyan's hand. However, this time, there was no flame attached to the surface of the ruler. Compared to the battle, it lacked a biting cold feeling and was much thicker and more majestic. Not bad, both of them have reached the level of a heavenly weapon. Su Xiang's eyes swept across the weapons in the hands of the 4 men. He nodded his head in satisfaction. This situation was much better than he had imagined. Upon hearing this, Xiaoyan looked at Jushinho with a slightly surprised expression. He initially thought that this spear had only reached the high grade of spirit weapon, but it had also reached the heavenly weapon realm. Lindao, your Imperial Dragon Point Blue Spear was obtained from the illusory spirit space. It belongs to the ancient heavenly weapon realm. The true power can only be comprehended by yourself. No one else can help you. Su Xiang cast his gaze at Lindao and said in a deep voice. Lindao's expression remained unchanged when he heard this. He silently nodded his head. With a flick of his fingers, the Imperial Dragon Point Blue Spear in his hand disappeared. Wu Shaoqi's hard bow should also be related to the inheritance that she has obtained. Therefore, you are the same as Lindao. You can only comprehend the power of this heavenly weapon by yourself. Looking at the hard bow in Wu Shaoqi's hand, Su Xiang shook his head and said in a deep voice. Your 2 heavenly weapons are different from theirs. If that's the case, after glancing at Xiaoyan and Jushinho, Su Xiang stood up and gazed at the entrance of the hall, as if he had seen through the entire hall and into the distance. All of you, follow me. I will bring all of you to see the Great Elder. He might bring the power of your heavenly weapons to a higher level. Su Xiang walked to the door, then suddenly turned around and said in a deep voice. This time, the 4 academies competition was related to the future of the Yunlo Academy. Even the Great Elder, who was only responsible for the safety of the Yunlo Academy, couldn't stay out of it this time. Chapter End. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 402. He met with the Great Elder. In the Yunlo Academy, Elder Shao and Elder Su were in charge of the academy's affairs. The former was in charge of the inner court, while the latter was in charge of the realm in Valley. As for the outer academy, there were a few third-grade elders. Other than that, the Chibai elders would occasionally appear in the inner academy. It was a matter that concerned the major events that had happened in the Yunlo Academy over the past few years, and the Grand Elder who had disappeared without a trace. He had been maintaining all the grand formations of the Yunlo Academy in the spatial zone that had been opened up in the depths of the Heaven Pillar Peak. He was in charge of the Academy's final safety. Under Su Xiang's lead, Xiaoyan and Jushinho once again arrived at the Heaven Pillar Peak. Jushinho's expression was slightly strange as he looked at the Heaven Pillar Peak in front of him, and then he inadvertently glanced at Xiaoyan. The last time they met here was after the inner courtyard competition. 2 years had passed. When the two of them arrived here again, they had both broken through to the Monarch Emperor. Xiaoyan pondered for a while and followed Elder Su. He thought of the Shanghao he met in illusory spirit space, but he didn't expect that Shanghao had already reached the 7th Monarch Emperor. He really had no idea how strong Kangfeng was. Elder Su. He frowned. Xiaoyan suddenly spoke. He recalled what Shanghao had said about Shangyu. The latter possessed the tyrant Heavenly King physique, which shocked even the Xiao. No one knew how strong he was. What? Su Xiang was walking in front, and he said with an expressionless face when he heard Xiaoyan's words. How much do you know about the Shang clan? After hesitating for a moment, Xiaoyan didn't ask about Shangyu directly. It wouldn't be easy to explain if it aroused Su Xiang's suspicion. After learning about Shanghao and Shang Shaoshan from the Star Sky Academy, I have a rough understanding of them. After pondering for a moment, Su Xiang said in a deep voice. His pace wasn't slow, and he had already arrived at the foot of the Heaven Pillar Peak. Shanghao and Shang Shaoshan, they should be the strongest amongst the young generation of Shang clan. Compared to the strongest young generation of Xiao clan, Xiaoyi, they're indeed much stronger. A bright light flashed across Xiaoyan's eyes. He smiled and said to himself. When he heard Xiaoyi's name, Jushinho's facial expression changed slightly. After that, he let out a cold snort and didn't say anything. You're right. According to what I know, out of the 4 big families in the star field, the Xiao clan is currently in the most awkward situation. There are only a few young experts among their generation, and the most outstanding one among them. I'm afraid that's Xiaoyi. As for the Shang clan, although Shanghao and Shang Shaoshan are outstanding, they aren't the strongest. Jushinho turned his eyes to Su Xiang, and was also attracted by the latter's words. Who is it? Xiaoyan's heart skipped a beat. He immediately thought of Shangyu. Shangyu possessed the legendary tyrant Heavenly King body. He must be the most outstanding person in Shang clan. Shangyu. As Xiaoyan had expected, Su Xiang pursed his lips and slowly spat out these 2 words. According to the rumors, on the day Shangyu was born, the weather in the entire star field changed. It even attracted the attention of a few old geezers. When they were young, many elders of the Shang clan had gathered in one hall to discuss a major matter with the patriarch of the Shang clan. Shangyu had sneaked into the hall. After being discovered, all the elders were furious. However, regardless of whether it was an emperor cultivation or a monarch cultivation warrior, they were suppressed by Shangyu's aura. This won't do anything to Shangyu. After the age of 10, the Shang clan sent Shangyu to the battle domain. Where did he train for a few years? He came back a few years ago. He had already reached the emperor cultivation level. 5 years had passed since then. No one knew what kind of strength he had now. Moreover, when Shangyu returned, he had fought with a monarch cultivation elder of the Shang clan, but it was a draw. That elder lost his ability to fight. Speaking of Shangyu, Su Xiang's expression turned serious. Although these were all rumors, there was no wind and no waves. Even if it wasn't that exaggerated, he estimated that it wouldn't be much different. Tokka defeated a monarch cultivation warrior. Jushinho's mouth twitched as he repeated in disbelief. The fist in his sleeve clenched tightly. Only now did he realize that he was still short-sighted. There was always someone stronger than him. Indeed, there was someone better than him. It was not just a saying. Wu. A trace of astonishment flashed across Xiaoyan's eyes when he heard this. This was a true monster, the tyrant heavenly king physique. It was indeed worthy of being called the legendary physique. This physique was born to fight. Su Xiang gritted his teeth and didn't say anything when he first read the information didn't join the Star Sky Academy. Otherwise, with just him alone, he would be able to defeat all the students of the other 3 academies. With the strength of an emperor cultivation, he could defeat a monarch cultivation warrior. This was simply unimaginable. After stopping in a corner of the Heaven Pillar Peak, Su Xiang formed a formation with both of his hands. In an instant, a light wave flowed in front of him. An illusory door of light appeared in front of them. Su Xiang requests an audience with the Great Elder. Seeing the door of light, Su Xiang bent his body slightly and said respectfully. The light door slowly opened after his voice sounded, revealing another part of the world. It was like a tunnel that led to the underground. One could not see the end of it at a glance. Su Xiang was the first to walk in. Xiaoyan and Jushinho hurriedly followed after him. When all 3 of them entered, the door of light shook slightly and disappeared. The space fluctuated and there was no trace of it appearing. Under Su Xiang's lead, Xiaoyan and Jushinho walked for a long time. When they arrived in front of an open space, they finally reached the end of the tunnel. What appeared in front of them was an extremely large open space. The 3 of them walked out of the tunnel. They stood on a square paved with black stone slabs. At the end of the square, around the palace was an enormous palace. There was a long stone bridge between the square and the palace. On both sides of the stone bridge, the black chains trembled. The rumbling sound continued to ring out. This is the last barrier of the Yunlo Academy. Su Xiang looked at the palace in the distance and muttered to himself. The last time he came here was when he accepted the appointment as an elder of the realm in Valley. He estimated that it had been more than 20 years since he last came here. Xiaoyan looked around and saw that the open square was surrounded by red cliffs. It seemed like a great divine ability had created a space underneath the Heaven Pillar Peak. Su Xiang, I already know your purpose of coming here. Bring them in. While the 3 of them were sighing with emotion, a deep voice was heard from the hall in the distance. It sounded like it had resounded in their minds, dispersing all the distracting thoughts in their minds. Yes. Upon hearing this voice, the proud Su Xiang didn't dare to be neglectful. He hurriedly responded with a loud voice, turned around and looked at Xiaoyan and Jushinho, and said in a deep voice, I don't care how impudent the 2 of you are in front of me, but when you see the Great Elder, you must put away your so-called arrogance. After saying that, he waved his sleeve and walked towards the main hall. Xiaoyan and Jushinho didn't say anything when they heard this. They silently followed after him. After crossing the stone bridge and arriving in front of the main hall, the doors of the main hall opened automatically, allowing the 3 of them to walk in without any hindrance. Great Elder. Entering the main hall, the dim light made Xiaoyan and Su Xiang uncomfortable, but Su Xiang instantly recovered. He looked at the old man in the middle of the main hall with a respectful expression. The old man was wearing a black robe. His white hair was casually hanging loosely on his shoulders. His face was as dry as tree bark. Although his eyes were cloudy, he had experienced the vicissitudes of life and was filled with wisdom. He should be very close to the 4 academies competition. The old man looked at Su Xiang and revealed a smile. He looked extremely ugly, and his voice was deep and powerful. It didn't sound like an old man who was in his twilight years. Only 1 month. Su Xiang nodded and replied. The old man nodded and looked at Xiaoyan and Jushinho who were standing behind Su Xiang. When he saw Jushinho, the old man smiled and nodded. Sacred Spirit Fire Body, 3 Monarch Emperor. Not bad, not bad. After saying that, he turned his eyes to Xiaoyan. When he saw the latter, the old man suddenly smiled and spoke with a surprised voice. The sound of 10,000 spiritual voices, the combination of yin and yang. So it's you. Chapter End. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 403 The Best Place for Cultivation. What? Xiaoyan was stunned when he heard this. He looked at the old man who had a mysterious smile on his face. He had no idea what the old man was talking about. Zhu Tianhou and Su Jiang also had puzzled expressions on their faces. They looked at Xiaoyan curiously. It's nothing. With a faint smile, the old man calmly walked forward. The smile on his face gradually faded. Qi Yun and I have told you about the situation in Yunlo Academy. The 4 academies competition should be a competition among the younger generation. However, this matter concerns the future of the academy. I really can't stand idly by anymore. Su Jiang remained silent after hearing this. Although the Star Sky Academy wasn't as strong as this time, they weren't as powerful in the previous competitions. However, the Yunlo Academy was still no match for them and was easily defeated. Last time, Mu Yuyang had just entered the realm in Valley, so he didn't participate in the competition. He didn't expect that so many monstrous geniuses would appear in this competition. Do you know who will lead the Star Sky Academy this time? After pondering for a moment, the old man suddenly looked at Su Jiang and asked. Xing Chanyu. Su Jiang pursed his lips and said in a deep voice. His voice was full of bitterness. Humph, it's that old man. The old man shook his head helplessly when he heard this. Xing Chanyu was the deputy dean of Star Sky Academy, and he was very powerful. If he were to lead the team this time, the other 3 academies would think that he was the one leading the team. It's also a great deal of pressure. I'll have to trouble you this time. I want to protect the safety of the academy. Qi Yun and Bai Hui are in charge of the overall situation of the academy, and they can't leave. There's no news from the dean either. Sighing, the old man gently patted Su Jiang's shoulder and said. The Yunlo Academy was built in the capital of chaos, which meant that it would be coveted by many major powers. Those powerful sect members were constantly watching every movement of the academy. If one of the old man and his friends left, the academy would definitely welcome a bloody purge. In terms of managing the academy, Elder Xiao was much better than Su Jiang. In this way, only Su Jiang could lead the team. Su Jiang nodded his head. He knew all the dangers faced by the Yunlo Academy like the back of his hand. Compared to the others, he was the most suitable candidate. Xing Chanyu has already advanced to the monic cultivation for many years. Given his disposition, he will certainly talk nonsense about the Yunlo. I know your temper, so you have to bear with it. Remember this. The old man looked at Su Jiang. His turbid eyes were filled with helplessness as he sighed. Clenching his teeth tightly, Su Jiang's cheeks puffed up. He took a deep breath and said slowly, Great Elder, don't worry. I know what to do. The old man nodded and didn't say anything else. He looked at Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhou, stretched out his withered hand and said, Show me your weapons. Su Jiang turned around and looked at Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhou. The Great Elder is quite accomplished in the field of weapon forging. He is very confident in raising the quality of ordinary heavenly weapons. If he is lucky, he can even advance a grade. First grade. Xiaoyan's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. When he was in the Xiao clan, the Great Elder of the Xiao clan had upgraded his blue flame ruler from a high-grade spirit weapon to a low-grade heavenly weapon, which had greatly increased the power of the blue flame ruler. No matter what, it should be enough for him to improve this time. While thinking, Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhou took out their own heavenly weapon. It was a thick and long ruler and an ancient-looking spear. The old man narrowed his eyes after receiving the 2 heavenly weapons. The origin key in his hand flowed. He carefully sensed the ability contained within the 2 heavenly weapons. He slowly opened his eyes a moment later and looked at Xiaoyan with a smile. Grey Flame Iron. Brat, this heavenly soldier is extraordinary. Head Elder's words are too heavy. Xiaoyan's heart shivered when he heard this, and he hurriedly spoke. According to Elder Yi, the rarity of Grey Flame Iron was comparable to a saint's skill. In the great world, only the spirit domain had it. It was somewhat out of his expectation that the great elder in front of him could recognize this item. Don't worry, this is related to the Yunlo Academy. I will do my best. Elder Su, tell the elder in charge of the Spirit Pavilion to bring all the materials related to weapon crafting to the Heaven Pillar Peak. The smile on the elder's face disappeared, and he said with a serious expression. Yes, Su Jiang hurriedly responded. He looked at Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhou and said with some hesitation, then these two. They will stay here and cultivate. There are still a few days until the forging of weapons is completed. If they can make some progress, it will be beneficial to the 4 academies competition. You two, do you have any objections? Although he was asking the two of them, the old man had already turned around and walked towards the depths of the hall. There wasn't the slightest bit of discussion in his tone. We'll follow Grand Elder's arrangements. Zhu Tianhou exchanged a glance with Xiaoyan. The two of them shrugged and could only agree. Seeing that the two of them agreed, Su Jiang didn't say anything else. After bidding farewell to the great elder, he left in a hurry. They really didn't have much time left. After Su Jiang left, the great elder also entered the depths of the hall. In just a short period of time, only Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhou were left in the huge hall. Have you noticed that the fire source here is very abundant? After absorbing refining Monic High Tianyan, Xiaoyan's ability to sense the fire source key became smoother and more natural. When he sensed the rich fire source key in the underground space, he said in a low voice. Zhu Tianhou was slightly shocked when he heard this. He frowned slightly and a flame pattern flashed between his brows. He nodded his head in surprise. The fire source key here was indeed several times denser than the outside world. No wonder they want us to stay. Zhu Tianhou muttered to himself. Then, he turned around and walked out of the hall. Compared to the inside of the hall, the fire source energy contained in the red magma below the stone bridge was even more violent. Xiaoyan smiled gently. The rich fire energy in the air entered his body, causing the origin monic crystal in his danshan to vibrate gently. It kept swallowing and swallowing origin monic kiss. The embryonic form of an origin chains, which was as thick as a forearm, had actually begun to show signs of appearing. After walking out of the hall with Zhu Tianhou, they looked towards the stone bridge. As expected, there were 2 cultivation platforms that had appeared out of nowhere below. They stood firmly on the red magma. The magma rolled and flowed, but the cultivation platforms did not budge at all. Xiaoyan landed on one of the cultivation platforms first. Zhu Tianhou followed closely behind, occupying another cultivation platform. The cultivation platform sank slightly, but it didn't move again. He sat down cross-legged and borrowed the help of the monic flame in his body. Xiaoyan instantly felt that his surroundings were endless. A fire source key lingered around him, seemingly about to devour him. Qi. After slightly circulating the flame mantra burning spell, endless fire source energy surged from all directions into Xiaoyan's body. It flowed through all the pores on his body and into the origin monic crystal through the meridians of the flame mantra burning spell. In an instant, a large amount of pure origin monic kiss was sucked out, and the embryonic form of an origin chains became even more obvious. While Xiaoyan was amazed by the efficiency of his cultivation, Zhu Tianhou, who was standing in the distance, also widened his eyes in surprise. The fire source key here was the best cultivation origin key for his sacred spirit fire body. It could be absorbed by the origin monic crystal without refining it. It was much more efficient than his previous cultivation. In the depths of the hall, the old man looked at the 2 divine weapons on the wooden table. He let out a light sigh, and in his turbid eyes. For the first time in his life, he had let Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhou cultivate here. It was because he could clearly see the density of the fire source key in their bodies, especially Xiaoyan. It was the guy who surprised him back then. The origin monic key in his body was the combination of yin and yang. The fire source key in this place was definitely the best cultivation item for him. It was even smoother than the little guy who had the sacred spirit fire body. This time, I don't dare to fail again. In the depths of the dim hall, the old man with white hair mumbled to himself. Chapter End. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 404 Potential. In the dark underground space, the silence was terrifying, and only the flowing red lava beneath the stone bridge could make some noise in this space. On the two cultivation platforms below the stone bridge, Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhe were sitting cross-legged, crazily absorbing the rich origin monic kiss around them. The fire source energy contained within was extremely huge. To Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhe, who specialized in fire cultivation, it was undoubtedly the most suitable place for them to cultivate. During the process of their cultivation, Su Jiang came to this spatial zone a few times in succession. He brought along the items that the Great Elder needed to forge weapons. These items had been kept by the Yunlo Academy for many years. For the sake of forging weapons, Su Jiang had no time to care about the preciousness of these items. On the stone bridge, Su Jiang silently looked at Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhe. After that, he turned around and left. The fire source in this place was extremely dense. Even he was surprised by this. As the core palace of Yunlo Academy, normally, even an elder of Elder Wu's level had no right to enter this place. The Great Elder allowed Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhe to cultivate here because of the four academies' competition. 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. During this period of time, the sound of metal clashing could be heard from the depths of the palace from time to time. It was like a clap of thunder that resounded throughout the palace. Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhe, who were standing outside the palace, didn't hear a single sound. They had spent 5 days cultivating in peace. Hong. On the 5th day, Xiaoyan, who had been quietly cultivating, suddenly opened his eyes. A clanging sound was emitted from within his body. Within his body, an origin chains that was as thick as a small arm was cut across the origin monic crystal. It was like a bridge that was connected to thousands of key paths. The source energy on it circulated. As it shook slightly, a powerful origin key was emitted from it. It was extremely dense. A monic emperor, Su Jiang, who had just come down from the tunnel, could not help but be startled when he saw this scene. After which, he muttered to himself. He expressionlessly walked forward and arrived at the stone bridge. He turned his eyes to Zhu Tianhe, who had woken up a long time ago. The latter's strength hadn't increased. He was still stuck at the 3 peak of Monic Emperor, but Su Jiang could faintly sense it. The latter's sacred soul fire body had grown even stronger in this place. One Monic Emperor. Xiaoyan's ki calmed down. He muttered to himself and frowned slightly. Logically speaking, the origin monic key in this place was most suitable for his cultivation. He could take it for himself without refining it. In these 5 days, he had absorbed a huge amount of origin monic key, but the results were not satisfactory. As expected, the fighting monic of lower realms required for every small step of the fighting monic of lower realm to break through to the monic emperor is a huge amount. Xiaoyan helplessly muttered to himself and shook his head. If these origin monic kiss were absorbed by the natives of the same grade, they would definitely be able to advance by 2 small steps, reaching the peak of 2 monic emperor. In his place, he could only reach 1 monic emperor. The gap between them was huge. Creak. All of a sudden, the doors of the palace, which had been shut for a long time, slowly opened. The few of them hurriedly turned around and saw the Great Elder slowly walking out of the palace with a tired face. In his hand was the blue flame ruler and the ancient-looking spear. Great Elder, how is it? Su Jiang hastily stepped forward when he saw the Great Elder. His eyes were filled with anticipation. Currently, he was even more anxious than Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhe. My luck is pretty good. Although I have used up a large amount of artifact forging items, I have still refined them into mid-grade heavenly weapons. Great Elder. Although his face was full of exhaustion, his eyes could not hide the joy in them. 2 heavenly soldiers had been refined into middle-grade heavenly soldiers. Even. Thank you. Su Jiang immediately frowned when he heard this. Even those monstrous geniuses of Star Sky Academy probably didn't have many mid-grade heavenly weapons. His confidence in this competition had finally increased by a few points. After passing the blue flame ruler and the spear to Shaoyan and Zhu Tianhou, the great elder gave Shaoyan a profound look. His turbid eyes seemed to want to say something but hesitated. Finally, he let out a sigh and said to Shaoyan, "Little guy. The combination of origin monic ki and yin and yang can reach your level. I have never seen many people in my life. Your strength must not be limited to this. I believe that even if you reveal your full strength, your hidden potential within the origin ki has yet to be unleashed." After saying that, the great elder shook his head and turned around to walk into the hall. At the same time, the doors of the hall slowly closed, blocking Shaoyan, who was about to ask something. Su Jiang looked at Shaoyan after hearing what he said, but didn't say anything. He cupped his fists towards the main hall, turned around and walked out. "Go back and pack your things. We will depart tomorrow for the trial ground in the central region." Hearing Su Jiang's words, Zhu Tianhou silently looked at Shaoyan. He had clearly heard what the great elder said just now. What kind of power did this guy possess? After that, he silently followed Su Jiang. Shaoyan pondered for a moment and subconsciously followed Zhu Tianhou. The great elder's words kept echoing in his mind. The potential hidden in the origin key. Shaoyan mumbled to himself. His eyes revealed a trace of confusion. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist under his sleeve. He knew his true strength the best. His true strength was the strength he displayed after he had fully unleashed the heavenly monic fire burning body and monic flame secret skill wheel flame Dao. As his strength increased and the 3 types of monic flames increased, the heavenly monic fire burning body, he could also unleash nearly 60% of the holy arts' power, and with the help of the wheel flame Dao. With his peak strength, he should be able to reach 8 Monic Emperor warriors. Including the blue flame ruler and the Monic skill, he could probably fight a peak of Monic Emperor warrior. This was his strongest strength besides the Buddha Fury Fire Lotus. If he wanted to increase his strength, even Shaoyan would not believe it. The ability to merge yin and yang. What exactly is it? Shaoyan gritted his teeth and shook his head. He stopped thinking about this problem, but his heart was still heavy. The great elder's words had undoubtedly become something that he couldn't get rid of. Walking out from the passageway, the dazzling sunlight greeted his face. Shaoyan habitually narrowed his eyes, then looked into the distance. In the huge canyon, the Yunlo Academy was located within. There were pavilions and pavilions everywhere. Currently, he could clearly point out the functions of every building. Unknowingly, he had been here for 2 years. While Shaoyan was silent, Su Jiang let out a soft sigh and waved his hand. "You guys go back and pack up. Tomorrow morning, leave the academy. There is a flying warship in the academy. It was found by the dean in an ancient ruin. It belongs to a type of higher grade artifact that was refined by an ancient weapon refining sect. It can be used to ride a few people. We will ride that one." After saying this in a deep voice, Su Jiang took the lead and stepped into the sky. As the leader, he needed to prepare even more things. "In these 5 days, you have only advanced to the Monic Emperor." Seeing Su Jiang leave, Zhu Tianhou suddenly spoke and looked at Shaoyan. Seeing Shaoyan nod in agreement, Zhu Tianhou sneered. "Although I didn't increase my strength, my control over the sacred spirit fire body has improved a lot. The current me might be much stronger than 5 days ago." Lips pursed. The cold smile on Zhu Tianhou's face faded, and he said in a cold voice, "Although that's the case, I don't think I will be a match for you. But sooner or later, I will defeat you." After saying that, Zhu Tianhou left without hesitation. My strength. Watching Zhu Tianhou leave, Shaoyan sighed. He was speechless. What the great elder said had always been on his mind. No matter what, there was no way for him to improve his strength as a peak of Monic Emperor. As for the potential in the origin key that the great elder mentioned, Shaoyan couldn't help but feel ashamed. After standing there in a daze for a moment, the fire wings on Shaoyan's back stretched out and flew towards his heavenly peak, full of worries. When they returned to Heavenly Peak, Zuna and Kalen were still cultivating in the spirit source formation. Looking at the hazy faces of the two girls, Xiaoyan smiled and didn't continue to cultivate. He just sat there quietly. Very quickly, the sunset glow arrived and covered the entire heavenly peak with a layer of light. In the dark night, Xiaoyan was sitting quietly on a stone bench. His eyes were bright and it was unknown what he was thinking. The next day, the sun rose again. Xiaoyan, who had not closed his eyes for the whole night, was still full of energy. He stood up and looked at Zuna and Kalen again. His eyes flashed with endless love and then he rushed to the sky with a loud roar. He rushed towards the direction of Heaven Pillar Peak. Chapter N. Battle Through the Firmament. Great World. Chapter 405 Bronze Warship. Early in the morning, the gentle morning light filled the academy, and the fresh air mixed with a refreshing smell. The flaming wings on Xiaoyan's back flapped rapidly, and very quickly, he landed at the foot of Heaven Pillar Peak. Below Heaven Pillar Peak, Su Jiang sat cross-legged on a huge rock. His clothes were soaked by the dew, and it was obvious that he had been waiting for a long time. Swoosh! Not long after Xiaoyan landed, a few more rays of light flashed across the horizon. Soon, Wu Shaoqi, Lin Dao, and Zhu Tianhou arrived one after another. All of them had solemn expressions on their faces. No one dared to lower the guard when faced with the 4 academies competition that was about to arrive. Elder Su, can we leave now? Wu Shaoqi quietly glanced at them and asked in a clear voice. There is no hurry. Let's wait for another person. Su Jiang raised his head and said with a solemn expression. Who is it? Everyone was stunned when they heard this, and Wu Shaoqi couldn't help but ask. Su Jiang gently smiled and suddenly looked towards the entrance of the Yunlo Academy. He mumbled to himself, they are here. Swoosh! As soon as Su Jiang finished speaking, a silver light suddenly appeared in the distant horizon. Within the light, a handsome young man was rushing over. The young man's black hair was fluttering in the wind, and his eyes were like stars. His entire body was filled with the aura of drifting dust. Mu Yuyang. Lin Dao was the first to react. His eyes were filled with fighting intent. He was very familiar with Mu Yuyang. It had been more than a year since they last met. Given Mu Yuyang's talent, perhaps he had already reached a higher level. Xiaoyan narrowed his eyes. Soul energy surged out from between his brows and instantly wrapped around Mu Yuyang. Although the latter was very powerful, his ability to sense soul energy was very weak. Mu Yuyang didn't notice anything when Xiaoyan's soul swept past him. 7 Monarch Emperor. Looks like this fellow has quite a great opportunity in the outside world. Xiaoyan smiled. Back when he had joined hands with Mu Yuyang to fight many Monarch Emperor warriors in Silver Moon Mountain, the latter was merely a 4-peak of Monarch Emperor warrior. Now, just over a year had passed and he had already reached 7 Monarch Emperor warriors. This kind of talent could be considered monstrous. The light flickered for a moment before Mu Yuyang steadily landed on the ground. He looked at Su Jiang in front of him and nodded respectfully at the latter. Sorry, I'm late. It's not too early. Su Jiang smiled when he saw Mu Yuyang. The former was the biggest trump card of Yunlo Academy this time. He wondered if there were any other major breakthroughs besides the growth of his strength in the past year. Lin Dao, your strength has also increased by a lot. However, it seems like Wu Shaoqi is about to catch up with you. Mu Yuyang smiled and looked at Lin Dao, his eyes filled with eagerness. Humph. Lin Dao frowned when he heard that. He sneered and said, that's her business. Mu Yuyang smiled and did not say anything else. He knew Lin Dao's character very well. As a longtime rival, he knew Lin Dao very well. Xiaoyan. Mu Yuyang was shocked when he saw Xiaoyan. He immediately came back to his senses. His eyes were more passionate than when he looked at Lin Dao. Senior Mu. Seeing Mu Yuyang looking at him, Xiaoyan cupped his hands towards the former and said in a low voice. What a good Saint rank trial participant. You have reached the Monarch Emperor in such a short period of time. You are indeed much stronger than me in the past. Mu Yuyang's eyes sparkled. He took a deep look at Xiaoyan and praised him from the bottom of his heart. Hua. While Mu Yuyang was speaking, Su Jiang had already walked to a spacious area. He gently waved his hand and the storage ring on his fingertip flickered. A relatively large bronze warship appeared on the empty ground. The battleship appeared to be cast from molten iron. The surface of the battleship flickered with the glow of green iron. It was extremely spectacular under the sunlight. When they saw the battleship appear, Wu Shaoqi mumbled to herself and quickly looked over. She had only heard Elder Wu talk about the uniqueness of the warship, but today was the first time she had seen it. Elder Wu's description was even more shocking. It was the first time everyone had seen this warship, so they all stepped forward and looked at it in surprise. Touching the bronze warship, Su Jiang sighed and didn't say anything. How many times had he applied to use the Yunlo's warship? The previous few times, he did not go with great expectations, but had helplessly returned. He hoped that this time, he would not make the same mistake. It's getting late, let's go, Su Jiang said indifferently. He waved his sleeve, and a corner of the bronze warship suddenly opened. A large door that could allow one person to enter and exit appeared. Su Jiang went in first, followed by Xiaoyan and the others. The space inside the warship was huge, and it looked like a small cultivation place. Su Jiang walked into the energy room after making arrangements for the few of them. Energy flowed in his hand and a large number of origin monic ki were poured into the energy source. Soon, the bronze warships rumbled. Following a sky-shaking roar, the battleship soared into the sky and rushed towards the outside world of the Yunlo. Elder Wu stood outside the punishment department within the inner academy. He watched the bronze warships leave as he sighed softly. He hoped that this time around, he would not have to reforge the regrets of his past life. At the peak of Heaven Pillar Peak, Elder Shao was sitting on a huge rock with his legs crossed. He glanced at the bronze warship that had disappeared into the horizon with a complicated expression. It was a long while later before he shook his head. All these years, he had done everything he could. Moreover, at the final moment, Xiaoyan and Zhu Tianhou had both reached the Monic Emperor. This had greatly increased the strength of the participating team. If they were to return with a crushing defeat this time, the future of Yunlo Academy was truly a mystery. They have left. At the entrance of the realm in Valley, Yuan Tianmu said softly. His expression was a little absent-minded. Originally, he was supposed to be one of the people who entered the warship this time, but it was hard to predict what would happen in the future. Although his strength had improved over the past few years, he was still unable to advance to the Monic Emperor. Although he had the strength to fight a Monic Emperor, it was nothing compared to the geniuses of the other three academies. Zan Kai, who was standing beside him, had a complicated expression on his face. Finally, he sighed. Zhu Tianhou, who was originally just a chess piece, had now far surpassed him. It was hard for him to see Zhu Tianhou's strength, but there was nothing he could do about it. Do you know? Narrowing his eyes, Yuan Tianmu let out a bitter laugh. We had made up our mind to kill Emperor Cultivations after breaking through to the Monic Emperor. When I went to look for them a few months ago, there was no trace of them. You mean, Xiaoyan? Zan Kai pursed his lips and said in a hoarse voice. That's right, I didn't believe it before. I thought the blood flame-scaled beast left after regaining its strength. Now that I think about it, it's very likely that it was killed by Xiaoyan during the trial of entering the realm in Valley. Whether it was Lu Xiangyang or Bai Yongzhao, neither of them had the strength to kill the blood flame-scaled beast. Only Xiaoyan could do it. Yuan Tianmu's voice was heavy as he spoke out his thoughts, but his mouth was filled with bitterness. With the strength of an emperor, he was able to kill an injured middle-rank heavenly beast. Just what level of strength did this fellow have? Zan Kai remained silent. He shook his head and walked towards Realm in Valley with heavy steps. 3 years ago, they were still sitting on the grandstand and looking down at Xiaoyan. Zhu Tianhou and Wu Shaoqi's experts were now under their feet. Brother, you have to work hard. Defeat Kang Feng and avenge your parents. When Mu Yiyu heard the news that the bronze warship had left, she muttered to herself with a pale face. She looked in the direction where the bronze warship had left and did not speak for a long time. This hatred had been suppressed in her heart and was about to dissipate. Today, it had once again erupted. Chi, the bronze warship's speed increased once again after coming out of the Yunlo Academy. Under Su Jiang's control, it shot towards the northwest direction. Xiaoyan looked through the glass and saw the scene that was flashing rapidly below. A tinge of emotion surged into his heart. He did not know what kind of scene would appear the next time he returned. At that time, he would also have to face the preparations to head to the Mingyan Divine Domain. He also needed to collect all the medicinal ingredients for the essence-protecting pill. Rumble. The bronze warship was like a huge lightning bolt that pierced through the void. It flew forward day and night. After passing by numerous residences and domains, its speed finally slowed down after nearly 20 days. In front of them was the trial ground of the 4 courtyards, the Star Moon Island. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.